Hi guys, welcome to another video where I speak about what Forex cards are, why are they needed, how can you procure one, and what additional fees and surcharges are associated with the cards. Okay, so many of you guys, even I, will be leaving in probably a week or at max a month. We need to get our financials in order and we need to seek the method to make our fee payment, disbursing the loan amounts, and finally manage the Forex cards to be taken with us with the best rate possible. अब सवाल ये उठता है ये साला Forex कार्ड क्या बवाल है? So why is everyone speaking about it? Is it absolutely necessary? Worry not, all your questions will be answered if you sit through this video. So let's get started. So a Forex card is basically a travel card which is a prepaid single currency or a multi-currency card which can act as either as a debit or a credit card to pay off the amounts or transact in international currencies on foreign soil. But Shaurya, you told that it's a prepaid card, then how can it be used as a credit card? I'll explain that to you. So it so happens that you load the card before using it with the currency you want to expend in. And the organizations which issue it, which I'll be talking about later in this video, can issue either a single currency card or a multi-currency card, wherein you can pay in INR, for instance, INR worth $1,000, which is subject to daily variation, and आज जैसे 74.5 का रेट चल रहा है, so 74,500 rupees for reloading your card with $1,000 if you want to spend in dollars or any other currency. So a single currency card will only accept a single currency conversion from INR to other, but a multi-currency card can accept many like USD, INR, Euros, Francs, etc. depending on which currency you want to load it in. Once loaded, you just have to swipe or pay at online merchants abroad and voila, the payment is done. Now you can ask the organization you have issued the Forex card with credit in the form of money, meaning in case if you have to pay at a local vendor $100 but $120 but your card only has $100, so you can ask the organization for that additional $20 as credit, and then you will have to pay a pre-decided sum from the bank that is called as a shortfall fees, which varies from organization to organization, and this is how it can work as a credit card as well. So who are these organizations that I've been mentioning throughout this video until now? These are nothing but banks, travel agencies and fintechs which issue these type of travel or Forex cards. The best type of cards according to the internet and our predecessors who have been there are Neo Cards, which is a fintech, HDFC Bank, Thomas Cook Card, which is a travel agency, then Axis Bank Card, ICICI Bank, Book My Forex, which is again a fintech, and then finally the government banks SBI and Canara banks. So the next question which arises is why exactly are these cards needed? So these type of cards are the most important thing, of course after a passport, for avid travelers who travel extensively to foreign locations. But to us students, they are needed for a minuscule amount of time, but a crucial time once we land. There are certain unavoidable expenditures which we have to commit to or cater to after we land. Like for instance, transportation from the airport to school or residence, and any kind of check-in or security deposit at the residence. These are the two things that come off top of my head. And it's not suggested to carry large sums of cash with you. And by the way, there's a limit on the amount of cash one can carry through the customs, US customs, otherwise you'll be caught. And don't take my word for it, but it is around 3 grand USD. So you need to carry the Forex card to make payments until a month. I would say it's necessary because it might take some time to open the bank account and cater to the other kind of formalities, necessary formalities. And believe me, sometimes you can save some amount of money on payments to local merchants if you are paying via the Forex card, swiping via the Forex card rather than the debit card of the local bank account which you hold. Secondly, this is my advice, this is what I am doing, is that your parents would need to send over the money to you wire it to your US bank accounts for your cost of living amount. But you can, and there's the conversion fees for a wire transfer is more than what a Forex has to offer. So what I am doing is I'll be reloading my Forex card with the amount of money which will be utilized monthly for my cost of living, and then dumping the amount in my US local bank account, which I'll be making once I land. That way I can save a lot of money, like probably say half a rupee per dollar. So next we jump on to the documents required to get the Forex card. Usually banks, fintechs and travel agencies, they ask for a passport, obviously a valid one, then a visa stamping, then your travel ticket, PAN card, and finally university letter or an I-20. Keep several photocopies of them handy. And lastly, what additional fees and surcharges are associated with the Forex card? Before you opt for a card, make sure to do a comparative study with all the banks between all the organizations which you visit, so that you can, make an informed decision before taking one. Once you are at a branch or speaking with an executive over the phone, make sure to bug them with the following questions. So the first question is, what is the card purchase fees? So card purchase fees is basically the sum which you have to pay to buy the card. This usually varies from 100 rupees plus GST to 500 rupees plus GST. This is the rates in Mumbai, and they vary from government to private banks respectively. The next question should be is card reload fees. So this sum varies from 50 rupees to 100 rupees in Mumbai, from government to private banks respectively, and then this is the fees you pay additionally to load your card with the other currency. So for instance, if you are loading a card with $1,000, that is 74,500 rupees, that means you have to pay the bank 74,550 or 600 rupees depending on where you get it deployed from. So the third question which you need to ask is fees for ordering a surrogate card linked to the same account. So this is the fees which you pay in case you want another card linked to the same account as a contingency plan. In case your first card gets stolen or lost, you never know what can happen. So it's best to keep another card linked to the same account. The fourth question which you need to ask is ATM withdrawal charges. Usually around $2 is levied for every bank. This amount is levied when you withdraw money from an ATM abroad. Then the fifth question comes is the ATM withdrawal limit. So be known that there's a limit to how much cash you can withdraw from an ATM in 24 hours. Usually varies from $1,000 to $5,000. Then the sixth question is swiping at merchant fees and the limit to it. So when you swipe at local vendors, that incurs a charge from the bank you issued your card. It can be free also, but your bank can issue a fees as well. So, and also there's a limit to how much you can, swipe to pay at a local vendor in 24 hours, and that usually is around $10,000. Seventh question which you need to ask is the online payment on the card enabled? So usually the cards have enabled swiping payments at local vendors, but in case if you want to pay it online, by putting your card number and the CVV and the expiry date, can you do that? The eighth question which you need to ask is the minimum amount you can reload the card. And finally, the most important thing are the conversion rates. So the conversion rates, as I was talking about, the IBR or the internal bank rates, which every bank has it, and then they levy the additional vendor charges. So basically the rate which they tell you, the conversion rates, will be IBR plus XYZ rupees. So that 1 to 1.5 rupees which is charged from you is the vendor charge or the bank charges. Okay, so IBR is what varies on a daily basis, but you can ask how much are the vendor charges which the bank is asking for. You might want to check this most importantly to make the decision. So that's about it from my side. Before wrapping up, a couple of generous tips. The first thing is banks have special promos or discounts that they have but do not mention it. They can be bargained in case if you have or your parents have a salaried account with the banks. So the banks can give discounts on conversion rates, other fees that is mentioned in the video, and apart from the ATM withdrawal fees and the swiping at merchant fees, those two fees are not in their hands. Then furthermore, it is advisable to track the INR to USD conversion rates on a daily basis and only to load the card once the rates dip. I would say anywhere around 73.5 to 74 is the best to reload your card in the current scenario. It is different every financial year. Be advised that the conversion rates are subject to change only when reloading the card, not the case when you are making a payment in USA. Thank you for staying through to the end. If you like this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more such content. Doing so motivates me to put out this content for helping you guys out. Stay tuned for more.